2014 and began pastoring the church in 2017. Brian is married to Tanya since 2016, and together they have 8 children and 14 grandkids. Brian recently resigned as the City of Commerce and as a City and Commerce employee to pursue his lifelong calling of being a full-time pastor. Brian, please come forward and lead us in our moment of invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. You bow your heads with me. Father, we come before you tonight in the name of your precious Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Lord, we just ask that you guide these folks in this time of direction for this community. It's a matter of change that we need, Lord, and we just ask that you guide them, give them words, give them wisdom, and give them understanding, God, to follow your plan for this community. And we ask it all in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brian. Always good to see you. Our Pledge of Allegiance tonight is being brought to us by Girl Scout Troop 8060 under the leadership of Mrs. Ashley Bryan. Mrs. Bryan and her husband have been residents of Commerce for 15 years. Together, they have a 2-year-old future Girl Scout. Mrs. Bryan started Troop 8060 in the fall of 2020 with only 3 fourth graders. There are now 15 girls in the troop, ranging from age 5 to 12 years of age. This troop is responsible for both the book tree inside the Commerce Public Library and the beautiful pollinator garden at Arthur's Park, located just outside of the permanent building for the Commerce Public Library. While the library is currently undergoing extensive renovations internally, the pollinator garden is still available outside for the public to stop by and enjoy on your way to the library's temporary location by Guarantee Bank at 1008 Main Street. The young ladies joining us from the Troop 8060 tonight include Ava, Naomi, Shayla, and Cora. Ladies, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item 4 on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. Please take a moment to look the items over and let me know if you have any questions on what's being presented.
Mayor, I have one question on B, the first bullet, which is the discussion of the renewal of the interlocal agreement between Hunt County and the City of Commerce on the animal shelter. Does that, I mean, I know the amount that's being covered, is that just for the building to help for, to cover that, or how long does it cover for them for their yearly?
So there will be 2 agreements between the City of Commerce and Hunt County. There's an existing agreement right now for the annual operations, and they pay us annually a sum of money for the operations of the facility. This is a new interlocal agreement for capacity in the building. So this is a one-time contribution for the construction of the expansion so that there's capacity for their behalf. Then there's a different interlocal agreement in which they'll pay us annually for operations.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, presentation to the City Council by members of the public. This period is reserved for citizens to discuss items not on the listed agenda. The response to the public comments will be limited to 1, a statement of fact or policy, 2, direction to take up the issue with a city staff member, or 3, an offer to place the item on a future council agenda. The public has 3 minutes per person to speak to the council. I do not have any cards this evening. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the council tonight? Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
I apologize, I didn't know I needed a card.
That's okay.
My name is Brent Money, 2403 Park Street in Greenville, Texas. I am a candidate, Republican candidate for Texas State Representative in House District 2. I am a sixth-generation Hunt County resident, a former city council member in Greenville for 6 years, and a city attorney for 7 years in Greenville before that. I've also served Quinlan and other areas. So I am an attorney. I'm a business owner. I own a title company with offices in 6 counties surrounding here. I'm a traditional constitutional Christian conservative who cares about probably a lot of the things that you care about most. And I'm also a businessman and former council member, and I understand the kind of representation that you need in order to be able to do your jobs here with the city well. And I think it's not a stretch to say that I understand the position that you are in better than any other people in this race, and maybe better than anybody else down in the Capitol, because I've sat right where you're sitting for a lot of years. And so I'm not going to take up the full 3 minutes. I would like to pass out a little bit of information and my personal cell phone number. I only have one cell phone, and when it rings, I answer most of the time. But I want to be accessible. I know that there's been times when, at least when I was on city council, where we felt like our state officials were not as responsive as we would like to be. And I just want you to know that I'm ready to go down there and be a true representative of the people here in Hunt County.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'll pay for that.
Didn't make much progress. I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Money. We appreciate you taking the time to visit our council meeting tonight. Anybody else in the audience wishing to address the council? There being none, let's move on to the council comments. Pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, the purpose of this section is to allow the mayor and each city council member the opportunity to announce city events, community interest, and request that items be placed on the future city council agenda. It is an opportunity for the council to express thanks, congratulations, provide information, provide honorary, salutatory recognition of a public official, a reminder about upcoming events, information regarding social, ceremonial, community events, announcements involving the imminent threat to the public health and safety of the people in this municipality. So, I think we've kind of talked. Go ahead.
Our city has gone through quite a challenge in the last couple of weeks, and our city employees stood up and took care of everything for us. And it's not just one department, it was every department. And as citizens, we had no idea on how hard they were working unless you saw some of the pictures. And so tonight, what we'd like to do is just honor everyone with this video that has been put together for us, and we thank everybody. I mean, from I can't even tell you. I mean, even when we talk about whether it's the water department, we had people that were from the animal shelter helping. We had people from the fire department, the police department. We had employees from City Hall. So it was an all-out, full gun, and everybody did what they needed to do through the night. Nights. So. just want to say thank you very much.
Mayor, if I can, I'd like to just recognize Kayla as our new communications person who put this together.
Very nice. Thank you, Kayla.
Excellent work.
Appreciate it. All right. Item 7 on the agenda is a presentation of Tax Note Series 2024 Plan of Finance by Hilltop Securities. Ms. Campbell.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So first, I want to apologize. It's actually Series 2023. I got ahead of myself thinking about the budget of 2024 and wrote 2024, but we're hoping to accomplish this in the calendar year of 2023, which makes it a tax note of Series 2023. Jorge will come up and talk to you guys about the plan of finance, but just to let you know that this is going to hopefully finance 2 different budget requests for FY 2024. One that is put in for the fire department to upgrade their training facility, and another one is by the police department to build a seizure warehouse, of which we don't have one. We're running out of space as it is. The seizure warehouse can then be utilized for hopefully for DEA revenue once those court cases come to completion. And so this plan of finance will help fund those 2 projects. Okay? Thank you.
Welcome back to the podium, Jorge.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Good to be back. Hope everyone's staying cool this way. Used to Texas weather. So, follow up on Jamie's comments, Mayor and Council. Jamie and Howie approached us a few weeks ago and started to work together on a plan of finance to fund the public safety facility for the projects Jamie just referenced. And the idea is, we briefly discussed when you got your results for your certificates of obligation last month, how we would still keep flexibility and capacity for the future CIP that you have in place. The whole plan of finance here is to fund this tax note and maintain that flexibility if you move forward with the CIP that you have in place, which the idea is that you're going to continue to review it on an annual basis, and we want the city to maintain that flexibility. You did grow 18% last year. That CO that you issued was absorbed with your growth in your existing debt service tax rate. This tax note would be absorbed at the same budget and same debt service tax rate target that you have in place. And we took it further step, and we looked at your next year's CIP. We layered it in, and it is something that also the city could absorb, just so you have that in the back of your minds. This is a different process than you have done in the past. Commerce has not issued a tax note before. Now, a tax note is very similar to a certificate of obligation with 2 key differences. The tax note can only be amortized for 7 years. Given the size of this project, it's a $400,000 project. It can be easily absorbed over a 7-year amortization. And a tax note, the other key difference is that it's only a matter of a city ordinance to go ahead and enter into the debt agreement. Now, that would happen next council meeting. Right now, it's just a plan of finance. There's no action item for you. But if you do want to move forward with this, it would be a matter of just going through the tax note ordinance and locking in an interest rate. Whereas the CO, you have to wait a certain notice period to enter that. In a CO, you use it for larger projects, right? You can extend the CO for 40-year amortization, 30-year, 20-year. Depends on the useful life. So when we have a bigger project in place, it's more natural to amortize for a longer period of time. You would get the same interest rate if you issued a 7-year tax note or a 7-year certificate of obligation, because you're pledging your same taxing pledge, which is your debt service revenues. You have an investment grade credit rating on your COs, which was just affirmed a few months ago. We wouldn't go through a rating process this time. The key difference here is you would do a private placement of the tax note. If you move forward today, our recommendation for the method of sale would be, we put together a term sheet. We don't put together an offering document, just a 2 or 3 page term sheet. We send it out to financial institutions, and we ask them for a bid. The morning of the day you will meet for your council meeting, banks are going to bid on this, and it's going to be one purchaser instead of bids going out to a number of investors. There's a lot of appetite for short-term. When I say short-term, it's something below 10 years, highly rated Texas paper. So Commerce is certainly that. You have your rating in place. We would tell these potential bidders, Commerce is doing a $400,000 tax note, 7-year amortization. Give us your proposal. We'll look at it, and we'll bring you the lowest. We'll bring you the bid tabulation, but what percent to you the lowest interest rate cost to do this? Here's the amortization, how it will look like. To get into the details, if you want, you could fit it within your debt service tax rate. It fits within your budget. You move forward today. We come back on August 15th. Go to the schedule of events slide. We come back on August 15th as you're working through your budget, and you would lock in an interest rate bank. And that's when you actually take formal action. 4 weeks down the road, you close and you get the funds to the city's accounts for $400,000. It's a competitive process. We'll get anywhere between 5 plus bids on this, and we'll solicit bids statewide, nationwide, and we'll also involve your depository banks to make sure they get to bid on this. So we'll get a good look at everything, anywhere from big regional banks to small local banks to nationwide institutions. The goal also is to get you a good prepayment flexibility on this tax note, so where you have extra funds in hand, you can prepay it if you decide to do so. It's a smaller tax note. You have that extra revenue. You have the option to do that. Any questions, comments? This is a different process. I want to make sure I'm clear what we're doing here. And also, you save on issuance costs, right? This is a smaller transaction. There's no rating fees. There's no underwriters fees. So it's more, it makes more sense from a cost perspective to do it as a private placement.
Any questions? I guess not. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Good to see you all.
Item 8 on our agenda tonight. Oh, sorry, Ms. Campbell.
I know that this is not an action item, but I would like to know if this is something that the council feels like they would like to move forward with or not. Because if it is something that they would like to move forward with, then we can start the process. If it's something that you do not want to move forward with, then we will not begin the process.
Councilman Henry?
It's basically, do you have the appetite to consider this? There's no commitment that we have to do it, but there's some work involved to get it ready. And if this is not something that you are comfortable with or that you have confidence in, we can delay starting this process. Okay.
Councilman Muller?
I say move forward.
Councilman Thompson?
Move forward.
And I as
Councilman
well. I think we should move forward.
Okay. There you go. Thank you.
If I may, and thank you, Jamie, there's a couple of considerations in this matter. One, from an operational point of view, when we look at the service we provide our community, specifically from our first responders, the ability to train consistently and train reliably is something that we place a high value on. And so, for example, talking about the fire department, the training facilities that we have for our staff are subpar. We have a training field. They started a number of years ago making some improvements to that training field. There are a number of additional improvements that are needed for it to be a functional, effective training field for our fire responders. And so looking at the number of things that we would like to do in that training field, we don't have the cash position today to start that process. Additionally, when we look for the police department, there is a number of law enforcement activities that include seizure of assets from the cases that we work. But at this point, if we seize an asset, we have no place to hold it. And so it limits our ability to do some enforcement, and it limits our ability to receive funding back from those cases as they're resolved. And so a viable solution is to have a yard or a warehouse where you can house and hold seized assets. There is a lot of talk and a lot of theory about why don't you cash pay for something like this? Why borrow money when you could pay cash? Two issues. One, we don't have the cash today. And so if we started saving up, it would be 5 to 7 years before we had the cash on hand to do this project and pay cash. The other issue is one that I call generational equity. We're not just like a traditional household budget. My personal budget, we don't finance things if we can avoid it. But when we're looking at assets that are going to serve this community over a period of time, and we ask today's citizens to pay 100% of the cost, even though future citizens are going to enjoy the benefit of that asset, there's not really generational equity. So we ask today's citizens to pay more than they have to so that tomorrow's citizens don't have to pay anything for the benefit of that asset. And so the ability to finance creates some generational equity, and it takes the cost of that asset, spreads it over the useful life of that asset. These assets will last more than 7 years, but they won't last 20 years. And so a certificate of obligation is a longer term. We didn't feel like that was the right instrument to finance these assets over their useful life. And so a tax note becomes a very attractive option where we can amortize that cost over 7 years. We'll recover the cost of those assets, and they'll still have useful life remaining. But it recognizes, one, the need to improve training now, the need to improve how we handle seized assets now, and not ask today's taxpayers to pay a higher rate and a higher cost today when we can spread it out over 7 years. And so that's what we felt was the attractiveness of this instrument, and so we thank you for your consideration. Again, if we start the process tomorrow, it'll come back according to the schedule that Jorge presented. You're not committed to do it. We can still have the option to vote up or down down the road. And so we will start the process and provide you information as we go along. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lisenby. Next item on the agenda, item number 8, discussion and possible action on the approval of a renewal agreement between the City of Commerce and the Boys and Girls Club of America, and authorizing the city manager to execute necessary documentation. Mr. Lisenby.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to discuss this today. 2 years ago, we entered into an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to provide youth sports and youth recreation to our community. When you hired me 2 years, 9 months ago, one of the big rocks that you put on the table that you wanted to be a priority was for us to rebuild youth sports in our community. They had been in a state of decline for a number of years, and then COVID effectively killed all the programs. So coming out of COVID, we wanted to rebuild viable youth sports for the kids of our community for a multitude of reasons. But even at its most basic, if you want legacy sports programs at your high school level, you've got to have an effective youth sports program at a young age. If you want competitive sports at a middle school level, you've got to have programs at a young age that get those kids engaged, involved, off the couch, and learning some fundamental skills. And so looking at the budget we had, the resources we had available, and recognizing for the city alone to take on the task of rebuilding youth sports, it would be a number of years before we could bring the resources to the table that the program needed. And so we created a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. It's a nationally known organization. The chapter in this region is known and respected, and they bring resources to the table immediately that we don't have as an organization, and we don't want to tap our kids and the families to pay for those costs. And so that 2-year agreement expires in September. We have the option to renew but the council also has the option to make changes in that. And so I've asked Jenny to come and make another presentation to review the progress they've made over the 2 years, to outline the resources and the dollars that they've brought into our community that our kids and our parents have not had to pay, and then talk about kind of what we see moving forward. I will say before I hand it over to Jenny, it is staff's recommendation that we renew this for another 2-year term, but we wanted you to see and hear from Jenny and have the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Jenny, thank you for being here.
And we presented last week to the Parks Board as well.
And the Parks Board voted unanimously to recommend renewing and extending the agreement.
All right, as Howdy said, thank you. I am Jenny Kruger, I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Northeast Texas, and I was here about this time last year to talk about what the first year of the partnership looked like, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here again and talk about what we've been able to do in year 2 and kind of where we're headed. This first slide is just a summary of the goals around the program and the partnership. We kind of consider this to be our North Star. This is what we want to accomplish together in partnership with the city. And as most of you know, where you start and your North Star, and the straight line here on this graphic of the plans that you make to get there often, look one way, and then reality often looks the other way. It looks like this dotted line. And so I'm here to talk about kind of what that has looked like, acknowledge the lessons that we're learning as we go through this process, and but also to reassure you that we are still very much in alignment with the city and appreciative of the partnership, and we are all still headed toward this North Star and have a great plan in place to make it happen. Because reality is often, more like this dotted line, we are committed as a Boys and Girls Club to a continuous quality improvement process. So we have an internal process in place in our organization, and we also have a process in place with the city staff as partners moves into soccer and basketball in the fall, and then baseball in the spring. So at the end of the baseball season, it's sort of like the end of a year for the sports, all sports. So from 2020, 2021 to 2021, 2022, we saw a 27% increase in participation overall. And then from 2021, 2022 to 2022, 2023, you'll see another 6% increase overall. And then we're off to a fantastic start with the kickoff of our summer camps this summer. And these numbers were actually numbers that I put into this presentation last week, and they have actually gone up since then. Our baseball camp, which is happening now this week, has had 26 kids rather than 20. And then the basketball camp has 16 kids registered for it. So now I'm just going to move into some highlights from each season. This is just a reminder of the highlights I shared last year of what we were able to accomplish in year one. And then this is a list of things that we consider to be accomplishments in year two. I mentioned some of these things in the list of commitments earlier in this presentation. And I'm not going to read this entire list to you, but a couple of things that I do want to point out. The background check process, that's something that's really important to us, especially from a safety standard standpoint. Background checks were not in place for coaches and volunteers before we began partnering with the city. And last year, we implemented that, but it was a little clunky. Sometimes it was taking like 2, often up to 4 weeks to get a background check processed and in place. And then we've cut that down to a 48-hour window over the course of this year. And so it's less cumbersome to get those background checks taken care of. We also did hire the sports director, Brendan. Many of you have met him, I'm sure. And we've been fully staffed this year in a way, like concession stands, less trouble, like having enough officials at games and different things like that. Those are things that we kind of struggled with. We did change baseball leagues this year, so that was new. But it was overall, we're all in agreement that was a positive change, and it won't be a new league next year, so we'll have our feet on the ground with that a little bit better. I don't think there's anything else that I want to highlight and talk about here, unless you guys will have time for questions. And then this is just the finances of it. So this is for year to date for us, for Boys and Girls Club, and our fiscal year is different than your fiscal year. So this is just January to present right now. We've brought in $110,000 of income, and we've spent $92,000 toward these programs. And we just wanted, and I have met with Howdy, and we have gone over finances in a much more in-depth way, even broken it down by sport and by season. But we want you to know that we are financially stable as far as being able to fund the program.
And if I may, go back one. Mayor, Council, one of the things I want to point out from this partnership is that within the calendar year so far, the $92,000 of expenses that have gone out, that's not $92,000 that's been covered by registration fees from our parents and the kids. A portion of that income is registration. The rest of that is covered with funding that the Boys and Girls Club has been able to secure through other avenues other than the kids and parents of our community. There are some expenses that the city is out. If it's related to facilities, we eat that because that's our responsibility is provide the fields. But then there are operating costs that we've covered that they reimburse us for. And so the ability to put money into the programs and not have the kids or the taxpayers pay all of it has been beneficial.
So that brings us to the end of the presentation, and I am definitely open for questions.
Any questions from the council?
I know I know that Ricky does quite a bit. Can you explain what his job is? Because I think he stays pretty busy with sports.
Sure. So when we began this partnership 2 years ago, one of the analogies that I used then, I still use frequently. Anybody that knows me and has seen me knows I didn't run track. I played basketball. I did not run track. But one of my favorite track events to watch are the relay races, where they're passing a baton. In the beginning of this partnership, we had a conversation that Ricky was hired as our recreation coordinator, and we want him to do more than just youth sports. We want recreation for all of our community. But when you're running a relay race, there is a period of time in which both runners are in the same lane, running the same speed, in the same direction, doing the same thing at the same time. And it appears to be inefficient because there's duplication of duties. But we talked about there was going to be some period of time that Ricky was going to be holding the baton, working alongside of someone from the Boys and Girls Club so that he could hand the baton off and then let go. Well, part of the growing process of the first year is that we didn't consistently have somebody from Boys and Girls Club for him to hand the baton to. So he spent a good chunk of the first year carrying the baton because there wasn't the runner for the next leg yet. In year 2, part of the way through the year, they got the grant, hired Brendan, and so Ricky and Brendan have worked together for large parts of this sport year to get up to speed so that we could hand the baton off. And what we're proposing, and to some degree what we've done in recent months, is handed off the baton, and now I've got Ricky focusing on some other things that are recreation related within our parks program. So there has been time and effort that Ricky was very active in youth sports, and then Ricky and Brendan together were partnered and very active in youth sports because we want to hand the baton well. And so that's been the role, and we're looking in this next 2-year period to hand that baton off and begin to shift and expand some of the things that Ricky can do.
Any other questions?
Not a question, but a comment. If we move forward with this, what I would hope that we would be able to see is at the end of each season, not the full year, but as we finish up like basketball, soccer, whatever, to see where we are and have it instead of waiting till the end of our
Sure.
year.
And we've been making some of those updates to the Parks Board. We can begin to include the City Council in those as well.
Okay.
There being no other questions, may I have a motion, please?
I move that we go ahead with a new 2-year agreement for the relationship with the Boys and Girls Club.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you to the Boys and Girls Club. Item number 9, discussion and possible action on a resolution allocating hotel occupancy tax, or HOT, grants. Ms. Campbell.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council again. So, last council meeting, we heard from different agencies that are interested in our hotel occupancy tax funds. And now it is up to you to allocate those funds if you so wish. And so I believe that we have a chart that we can look at again. We have estimated budgeted revenue for 2024 of $40,000. The Children's Museum has requested $12,000. The Chamber has requested $15,000. The College Athletics Department has requested $15,000. Champs Heart Bowl has requested $5,000. And we are also requesting for the Community Engagement Specialist $18,000 for her portion of salary. So overall, you have $65,000 of total requests. And of course, like every year, you get to be the ones to decide how to divvy up those requests. Overall, our estimated fund balance at the end of 2023, I'm estimating to be around 87,000.
But I believe you provided a target of 40,000 that you wanted us to stay
Correct.
with. Okay, any questions from Ms. Campbell? If not, then what I'd like to do is I'd like to address each one of these items, each one of these groups of folks, and then I'd like to hear from the council an idea or recommendation for what we could allocate to each of these groups. The first one being Commerce, Chamber of Commerce. Would somebody like to make a recommendation?
$5,000.
5,000. Any other recommendations, comments, or questions? Okay, and I'm sure Ms. Campbell is recording these as we are. Okay, next in line is the Northeast Texas Children's Museum. Any recommendations for the Children's Museum?
7,000.
7,000, all right, thank you. Any other recommendations? Okay, there being none, Texas A&M University at Commerce Marketing Agreement,
12,000.
12,000. Any other recommendations?
10,000.
Okay. So we have a 12 and a 10. Would each of you like to elaborate on why 12 or why 10?
I think we have given them 12,000 the last several years. I also think that the university, if all said and done, that is who brings the majority by far of our hot money into the city through hotel stays and the like. That's tourism.
Councilman Henry?
I can stay with 10. I can stay with 12,000 with that.
Okay, all right, thank you. 12,000, Ms. Campbell. Champs Heart of Texas Bowl. Any recommendations?
Same, 5,000.
5,000.
All right. Any other recommendations or comments? The Parks and Recreation did not request any this year, so the next group is the City of Commerce Community Engagement Specialist. If my math is correct, that leaves $11,000 for this position. Is there any question, comment, or is 11,000 the recommendation?
I recommend 11.
Okay. Ms. Campbell? All right. That being said, just in case we didn't write it down, Ms. Campbell, would you mind reading those numbers back to us, please?
So if the council has requested the chamber to have 5,000, the museum to have 7,000, TAMU Athletics to have 12,000, Champs to have 5,000, and then Commerce, City of Commerce Community Engagement Specialist to have 11,000.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments on the numbers that have been recommended? If not, may I have a motion, please, to accept as presented by Ms. Campbell?
I move that we accept as presented by Ms. Campbell.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Campbell, for your assistance. Item number 10, discussion and possible action on a resolution of the City of Commerce City Council to approve the purchase of an AV system from CNC Pro AV for use by the Commerce City Hall Council chambers and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute any necessary documentation. Ms. Campbell.
Okay, good evening again. So, the agreement that we have given before you, we're actually going to ask you to table it this evening. And the reason why is because this agreement is a part of the TIPS Purchasing Cooperative, and the City of Commerce needs to get our TIPS membership up to date. And so when we meet again for our August workshop, we will bring it back to you. But I want to give you an update on and tell you a little bit about what this project is ahead of time. So as all of you know, we now meet twice a month in this council chambers. And there have been quite a few times where we have had some failed system Zoom meetings and some other situations that have happened. We've had meetings that we've tried to stream and the streaming devices aren't working. There are times when the projector fails. We also use this room for court. Once a month she comes in here and meets for court, and they typically have problems trying to get the projector to work, and there's lots of things that go into that. Many years ago, they started an upgrade process in this room. And that upgrade process included like that panel that's on the wall that lets us kind of project everything. There was supposed to be like a 3-phase process. They did phase 1 and then stopped. So this would finish out all the phases. It would bring everything back up to date. It would update our streaming. It would actually update the projector. It would update the programming that goes into the microphones. It would update the programming that goes into the cameras. It would also add extra microphones and an extra camera. And so we would have the ability to have workshops on the floor and still be able to stream them, which right now we're not able to. We would be adding a microphone to the center of this room, and so hopefully we'd be able to pick up a lot more comments that are made. It would also be really helpful when we're having our workshops. We would be adding a couple more microphones like this one for during workshops, things like that. And so this whole project would kind of bring our whole AV system in this room up to date. It would streamline the whole streaming process, including the YouTube process. And it would just kind of fix all the problems that we've had. And so I kind of call it our Frankenstein. We have Frankensteined our AV together. And so this would fix all of that. Because it is a TIPS purchasing agreement, the vendor, who is out of Sulphur Springs, is a TIPS contractor, which means that we don't have to go out for your typical bid process because they already go through that bid process through this procurement process. We just have to update our membership. So does anybody have any questions about the project?
Any questions for Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, she has requested us to table this. May I have a motion, please?
I move that we table this action until our August workshop.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Item number 11, the second reading, discussion and possible action on an ordinance of the City of Commerce reauthorizing the extended sale of alcohol hours for current and future eligible establishments in the City of Commerce, conditioned on criteria within the late hours permit, establishing a fee, providing for an application, permit, and compliance procedure, providing for a penalty, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Chief Phillips.
This is the second reading. If y'all recall from the first reading, we discussed a lot of things, records, data was one of my main searches that we need to provide y'all, and that is, or was this ordinance creating more criminal acts for the city and would return those records for basically none. I found 5, but they were unrelated to this ordinance. Just
Are there any questions for the chief? There being none, may I have a motion?
I move that we accept this ordinance as, with the second reading with the 2-year sunset agreement.
Second?
All in favor say aye. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 12, City Manager's Report. Mr. Lisenby.
Mayor, Council, thank you again for the opportunity to present tonight. First point is public input and feedback from public comments. I want to recognize Mr. Money and Brent, thank you for being here and addressing the council. We wish you luck in what is going to be a fast and furious campaign season, I would expect. But I will take this opportunity to momentarily step on a soapbox and then step back down again. From your time in local government, you understand the importance of the home rule status of a community and the ability of a community to set its own destiny, define its own environment. And the legislature in Austin over the past multiple legislative sessions have grown increasingly hostile to cities' ability to live and regulate within themselves. And to some degree, they're attempting to take away the voice of our citizens in how we do business. Most notably in this last legislative session, there were some bills that were very detrimental to the, we'll say, the sovereignty of local governments, because Austin thinks they know better how to run our city than we know how to run our city, and they've taken away some of our ability to regulate our own existence. We would hope to see that trend to reverse. Texas is fiercely independent when it comes to the federal government, and we don't want the federal government telling us how to run our state. We completely agree. We think that concept should then flow all the way down. The best control is local control. And so we appreciate your experience in local government, and we've been giving this pitch to everybody that says they're running for this seat. At the end of this last legislative session, we didn't have anybody representing us in Austin placing votes for or against these things. So we very much look forward to having somebody back again. So, yes. Agreed. Thank you. Mayor, I'm going to invite Jamie to the podium one more time to give a finance update. She's earning her paycheck today.
All right, we'll get started on property tax. So, we have reached 97.4% of our budgeted property tax revenue. On July 25th, we will receive our tax roll that is related to 2023, which is related to our budget of 2024. And within that tax roll will be our adjusted 2022 tax levy. Although we don't get credit for an adjusted tax levy, it will take into account all of the refunds that we have been seeing. So, for example, in June, the City of Commerce gave a refund of $37,000 that I'm assuming came from somebody successfully protesting their taxes. So it is doable, people. It happens. Okay. So even though when they do our calculation, or when I do our calculation on effective tax rate, I know that's not the new word or the right word, but no new revenue rate, they don't necessarily give us that 3.5% based on what our tax levy was when we did it last year. They do it based on what this new tax levy is. So that 3.5% increase is really not a true 3.5% increase. But after July 25th, we'll have that new tax roll and we'll know what our adjusted tax levy is. And so once I have that, then I'll know how close we are to what our actual tax levy is. Any questions? Okay. On sales tax, as of June 2023, we have reached $1.18 million in sales tax revenue, which is 85% of our budget. We're currently trending about 14% ahead of schedule on our sales tax revenue. We have paid another rebate, so we're up to $10,000 on our sales tax revenue. And so we only have $190,000 left to go. When we look at our
Or 5 years, whichever comes first.
or 5 years, whichever one comes first. When you look at our top 10 categories, everything is trending as we would expect it to trend. So in 2023, June, we saw a 6% increase in sales tax revenue related to retail trade, but a 14% increase related to accommodation and food services. Overall, when you're comparing June 2022 to this year, there was a 10% increase in sales tax revenue overall. So the largest category that had an increase was in our food services. So when we look at our retail trade, overall, the split for retail trade was very similar to where it was last year. Online shopping is following the same trend. While it is slightly higher than it was in 2022, it's still not where it was in 2021. 2021 was such a huge spike for us in online shopping. That's one really good thing that came out of everybody staying home. Everybody was just staying home and shopping. But we are still following that same trend, which is really nice. So when we're looking at the accommodation and food services, there was a big shift in the split, and when I dug into it, I found it was because a couple of some of our larger companies shifted from paying monthly to paying quarterly. And so that kind of started skewing our numbers a little bit and our shift a little bit. But once again, we still see those limited service restaurants gaining more and more momentum in commerce. But full service restaurants was 41% last year, and it's 42% this year. So those full service restaurants are still staying strong. Okay, so July 31st, the new rates for city sanitation will go into effect. Again, these are just the rates that we pay city sanitation. It does not affect the rates that we charge our citizens. And so based on a 4.5% increase that city sanitation requested, this is the table that I recreated. It was Schedule A for their contract. Contract has not changed. This is just the updated Schedule A for the contract. I've sent it to Mary Miller. She has approved it. The only change that I think she came back was on the city cleanup rates. Amount per ton is actually $28.25, and that's a pass-through rate that Malloy Landfill, or is it Malloy Landfill, that they charge. And so they don't overcharge us. They don't mark it up. That's just the going rate that they charge. And so I've since updated that. I just didn't update it in time to get it into your packet. Any questions on the updated rates with city sanitation? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Ms. Jacobson.
I will defer to Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I'm proud to announce that recently we partnered with Script and First Baptist Church as well, and as a result of that partnership, every Monday and Wednesday now we will be having bingo for senior citizens age 60 and up from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll be serving them a meal at 12 o'clock. So if anyone's interested, they just need to come to First Baptist Church Fellowship Hall area, come play bingo and have lunch. So.
Thank you, Ricky.
We may be recruiting mayors and council members and former mayors to call bingo. You have not lived until you've called bingo with this crowd.
I'm
So
going to let him reach out to y'all for that one. So also, as you know, our farmers market is currently open. We're open every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. We are still accepting vendors at this time. So if there's anybody that's interested, they can come see me in person for an application. They can go to the city website, or they can email me, and I can email them one back for them to fill out and turn in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, city manager, as a reminder, we continue mosquito spraying. We begin in May. We will continue that through September. I touched base with your public works crew today. They've tested over 1,200 mosquitoes. So we're happy to report none with transmittable diseases so far. I know I've seen a few communities pop up on the news with some positives, so that's certainly great to hear. They're in an off week this week, and they will start back spraying next week. So as a reminder, bring your dog bowls in. The pesticides can stay on surfaces for some time, so they recommend not having the kiddos out playing when they're spraying in your section. They spray at 7 p.m. This calendar is available both here at City Hall and on our website if you would like a copy. I believe that's all I have.
all right, Mayor, Council, talking about personnel updates. Back in April, we gave an update on the number of vacant positions that we had. At that time, the most notable was 6 vacancies in our police department. And we are now pleased to announce 3 vacancies in our police department. So we're making progress to getting back up to fully staffed. Within the community development department, our code enforcement officer retired and moved on. And so Bridget is moving over into the code enforcement role. She's going through training and licensing right now. You may remember Billy Relford. He's come back on a part-time temporary basis to help do training for Bridget. So that means the coordinator position that Bridget held at the window is now open, and we're advertising and taking applications for that position. And then as Pastor Brian came and gave her invocation today, he recently stepped down from his position with the staff to vote full-time to the ministry that he is called to. So those are 2 vacancies in community development. We're hoping to find a building inspector that's already licensed, but if we're not able to, we are able to hire someone and send them to training and get them licensed and certified. Public Utilities has 1 vacancy, and our Streets Department has 1 vacancy, and our Fire Department currently has 1 full-time vacancy. We're not forecasting the future just yet, but we'll soon have 2 vacancies in the fire department. Not because Pre-Tree ran them off or anything. We just have 2 vacancies. In terms of project updates, starting tomorrow, you're going to begin to see a significant amount of earth-moving equipment and traffic at the animal shelter. The county, based off this interlocal agreement, begins to move 4,700 tons of material. That's approximately 200 loads from their belly dump semis. So our precinct 4 and 2 other precincts are sending equipment, and they're going to try to get all of that dirt moved this week. We're hauling it to the city's closed landfill that's next door to the Republic landfill site. And so there will be a lot of dirt moving and a lot of traffic with those trucks hauling that material off. The contractor plans to then come in right behind them and begin construction. So I hope to have some pricing and some information for you on the animal shelter project in the near future. As you'll recall, this project is a design build delivery, and so it's not a traditional bid process. We've already identified the contractor during the design phase, and so now as design is completing, they'll have work packages that we already will have pricing for, and I'll bring you those pricings so that we can approve. And so the first package will most likely be the remainder of the dirt work and some items that we need to get ordered because they have a long lead time. I will reiterate that the in-kind contribution from Hunt County for this effort, the work that they're doing, we would have paid a private contractor approximately $200,000, and the county is contributing that time, equipment, and personnel as their in-kind contribution to this project. Finally, the library renovation, fully designed. All of those documents are finished. We're going to look to bid that project in the first week of August. We'll try to open bids at the end of August, and I'll have a project to recommend award in the September council meeting. Those are all of our reports and updates. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lisenby? There being none, we do have the need to move into, to recess into executive session. So at 7:11, we are recessed. Are we ready? It is 8:23 and we are back in session. So the first item we have under item 13 is the consultation with the attorney on a matter with discussing the duties of the attorney to the government body under Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meeting Act, and consultation with attorney regarding pending contemplated litigation, Malloy versus City of Commerce.
Mayor, there's no action on that one.
Moving to the next one, deliberation regarding real property, closed
Nope.
meeting.
The Dan Tolbert v. City of Commerce, we have action on that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, Dan Edward Tolbert versus City of Commerce, Texas.
I move that the City of Commerce approve the settlement with Dan Tolbert
In the amount of $50,000.
in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. Government body may conduct a closed meeting to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person.
You ready for me?
Yep.
All right. I move to approve the property number 25584 to BK Hill Real Estate for $900,000. BK Hill Real Estate.
For how much?
900K. 900,000.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. The real estate transaction with Purdue.
Authorize the city manager, make a motion, we authorize the city manager to create a purchase agreement with Zeb Pardue for 16 lots at $250,000.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Last item we have is to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, the city attorney.
I move that we, the city, agree to the new letter of terms with the Messer Fort Law Firm.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. There being no other business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
At 8:26, we are adjourned.
Good one. Good one. Thank you for the good work.
We made some money in
Money tonight, money tonight.
Yeah.